So, welcome everybody. This is our Purpose in Action. The year starts with you. This is our free webinar for January, and I'm really excited to bring this content with you today. I want to acknowledge you for choosing to sign up to this webinar, even if you didn't get to it live in the live version. I still want to acknowledge you for signing up with the intention because I appreciate it's a funny time of year. I was just saying with Belinda, it's a bit of a gamble. Either people are going to sign up because they're off and they've got time to give this topic, which is very admirable, or they're back at work and they're thinking, no, this is a really, really important topic. So I just congratulate you. This choice really matters, in my opinion. This session's all about finding solutions to some of the challenges that we have, but maybe in a slightly indirect way to the way we normally do. It's about creating a space to reflect, to reconnect, and to remember what matters to you as a leader in early childhood. So I called today Purpose in Action because purpose isn't something we just think about and move on from. It's something we return to. It's something that we live and breathe. And in my opinion, it's a great time of year to review and reconnect with our purpose, as it is when we're in leadership challenging times or when things are starting to feel a bit too hard or our motivation's dipping. Reconnecting with our purpose and really getting up close to it is a real powerful tool for you as leaders. So as we move through this time together, I invite you to be here as yourself, not necessarily as your title, because this session's all about you, and how you got to where you are, because this is a very, very important journey you've made to get to this point. And sometimes we're always moving on to the next thing. We're thinking about the next thing we want to do, the next thing we want to achieve. And we sometimes forget the journey that's got us here. And often the journey that's got us here has some really, really valuable information that can reignite us. I know I've been doing this work myself over the break, and there were some things that I'd really forgotten about in my past that really light me up and have led me here, but I've sort of dropped them along the way. I've forgotten them and I've reconnected with them, and they've really given me a lot of joy and motivation to continue doing what I do, but to bring in some other elements that I'd actually forgotten about. So I'm very excited to talk to you about this topic today. As we move forward, I just want us to start off with acknowledging the land on which I'm joining you from today. I'd also just really like to acknowledge today being a National Day of Grieving for the Bondi incident that happened in December, and just really want to acknowledge that this is quite a somber day for many people today. And yeah, it feels very right to connect that with our Aboriginal acknowledgement, because I think there's a lot of things that we importantly need to connect with. So today I come to you from Engadine, which is in the Sutherland Shire, which is the Darawal country, and I therefore want to honour the Darawal people as the traditional custodians of this land. I pay my respect to the elders, past and present, and to the stories, wisdom, and connections that continue to live through this country. We're gathering today from many places across New South Wales, I think, today, but we come from different countries, different skies, each of us carrying the threads of where we come from. And as we meet, may we listen with our whole being. Oops. May we hold space for more than one way of knowing, and may we remember that learning is not just about content, it's about connection. Can we travel through the time and space we have together today with respect, curiosity, and a willingness to grow, knowing that in every conversation a story unfolds, and that within this shared space, our thoughts, experiences, and ideas have the potential to weave together, forming something new and something none of us could shape alone. So I'm going to take a nice, beautiful, deep breath. And I just want to welcome Mel in. She's just joined us. Mel, I don't know if you can pop your camera on. And if you can't, I wonder if you can just let me know. I can't hear you. I'm just going to leave you to, you might be busy trying to work some technology out. So I'm just going to keep moving forward, but hopefully you'll be able to get your camera because it'd be lovely to meet you in person. So why this conversation matters. So for any of you that don't know me, I'm Sarah Moore, the Director at Early Education Leadership. And I really love talking about this important conversation, purpose, because I come at it from a slightly different angle from a lot of people. I don't come at it from a theory perspective that often we do in early childhood in terms of, compliance and legislation. I come at it from much more, hi Mel.
Sarah, we actually talked last couple of weeks ago. So
I
Mel,
know we
Melinda,
did.
hello.
I'm very happy to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's all good. It's all good. I'm going to keep moving forward. And I was
Keep
just
going.
saying, because we're such a lovely small group, when I open it up for conversation, I'm going to stop record so
Okay.
you can all talk freely and it's not recorded because this will go onto my learning platform. So, as all of you know, early childhood leaders are being asked to hold a great deal. And I think you always have been. I don't think that's new. But from where I'm sitting, it definitely seems to be an increasing load that is coming your way and has been landing in your laps for quite some time. And you're holding teams together through huge issues around staff shortages, increased compliance, constant decision making, switching and changing in decisions, while at the same time working hard to protect what matters most, children's well-being, strong relationships, and the quality of early childhood practice. And yet, I think despite all of this, leaders navigate huge complexities, navigate constant change and challenges, but still, there still continues to be this huge aspiration to continue to do great work. And that's something I find very, very inspiring because, on the one hand, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of hard decisions that have to be made and complex things that have to be worked through. Yet, consistently, well, within my community, definitely, I feel that you're still wanting to lead with clear intention. You still care deeply about the culture and the connections you have, and you still believe this work matters and that you're aligned with the impact you aspire to create. And so to me, this conversation really does matter because it's about, so in spite of a changing world, and it's globally, it's not just in early childhood, and despite all the challenges, how do you stay anchored? How do you lead from a place of presence? How do you continue to align to your actions with your values, despite the many complexities and challenges within the sector? And I know that Quality Area 7 of the National Quality Standards, reminds us leadership is a key driver of quality and sustainability in early childhood, and I don't dispute that. But it's not just a process, it's coming from human beings that are hugely passionate about the work that you do. And you're so committed to this work because when you as leaders do this work and you do this work where you feel supported and you feel nurtured yourselves and you feel valued, it enables you to lead well and it enables you to have improved well-being and it enables you to lead your teams and your whole service strengthens because of it. So to me, this topic isn't optional. It's actually an essential part of good leadership that we need to start with our purpose first and foremost. Before we look out to our teams and to our services, we need to really slow down and step in and reconnect with our purpose. So that's me talking for a little bit. And I'm going to press pause because what I'd love to do is just open it up for a conversation for us to have, and not in the chat box because we're a beautiful small group, in terms of you sharing a little bit about what interested you to sign up to this webinar, why you're here. Will. Um, So an important part of today is just informing you or sharing with you how this work was shaped. And I've sort of touched a bit on that previously, saying about the terminology around between purpose and why. But more broadly, everything that I'm sharing really today has come about through me working with for many, many years on this particular topic. I think it's probably about 9 years I've been working on the topic of why or purpose. As I've mentioned earlier, it's not from a theoretical perspective. It's been tested and lived out in real services time and time again. And I mean, Tracy would be somebody that would definitely support this. It's work that, we keep coming back to. And I know what I've seen where services and directors have consistently done this work, it's where big shifts happen. Motivation returns, decision making becomes clearer, leaders feel more intentional, less reactive. And when the connection's lost, when people start to lose sight of their purpose, and I'm talking more in the context of leaders today versus educators, I see leaders just starting to get pulled every which way. They're often not working in alignment with their values. They start behaving in ways that don't feel comfortable. They're having conversations that don't sit well with them. They're making decisions that don't necessarily feel right. And they get caught up in urgency. They get caught up in compliance. They tend to lead more from a protective perspective versus a collaborative partnership perspective. And stress levels just increase. And we know stress is not a bad thing in itself, but excess stress is not good for us. And what the pattern of continuous upward driven stress does is it really interrupts what sits at the heart of the conversation we're having today, and that's your purpose. So it's often, as I say, not talked about in this way. And it's something that the experience I've had where I'm going to share with you later on, people I've worked with, experiences of other directors where they've just totally changed the way they approach work, the way they feel about work, and get a real rejuvenated sense of importance around what their work is. And I think, as some of within my work, I've studied in conversation intelligence, which is the neuroscience of communication. So I've done a fair bit of work around how the brain systems work. And we know that, when we're stressed, we're unable to access all parts of our brain, and it directly impacts the way we function as leaders. Definitely from a well-being perspective, which is the most important, but also from the way we actually function, the way we communicate and show up for our teams and families. So what I'm sharing with you today, I've delivered in my online conscious leadership program in hundreds and hundreds of sessions, and I continue to roll this work out in teams. On Monday, I was out in a service in Strathfield doing this with a small team there. It continues to be, as I say, an important part of the work that I do. And it leads very much into the work that I have done and continue to do with my Conscious Leaders Mastermind program. And now, which isn't on here, our new program, which is the Dandelion Project, which is for educational leaders, where again, we focus very much on making sure people are anchored in their purpose before we even remotely start talking about managing and leading anybody else. So today is really about tapping into your wisdom and your knowing, because to me, um, that's the fastest route to you discovering your purpose. It's nothing to do with me, it's totally to do with you and giving you the opportunity to have the space and time to know that if you spend the time tapping into your purpose, you'll be able to really effectively articulate it. I can provide tools and structures on how to do that, but it definitely, the answers all lie within you. To reconnect to your meaning and direction. So which direction or which directions do you want to take moving forward, for you to explore how purpose supports clarity, trust and well-being. To share one simple tool you can use, which I'm hoping that all of you manage to get your copy of the resource that supports this, and start the beginning of another, I should have in there, exciting journey, because there's multiple exciting journeys and this is just one of them. So when we hear the word purpose, in early childhood, many of us automatically think in professional or compliance language. We think about service philosophies, quality areas, policies and plans and documentation. And all of that really, really matters. I'm not disputing that doesn't matter. Those things are important and they sit at the heart, as you know, of the National Quality Standards and ASIQA's expectations around intentional practice and leadership. But that's not where I'm starting today, because if we begin there, purpose can quickly feel like something we write rather than something we live. So for the next part of this session, I'd like you to gently set the professional layer to one side, not discard it, just to press pause with it. So for the next part of the session, I'm going to be inviting us all to do something slightly different. To reflect not on what's expected of you in terms of your job role or your job title or your position, but on what originally mattered to you. Why you came into this work, the relationships you wanted to build, the contribution you hoped to make. And that's the layer we're starting with, because that's the layer that's, it's clear. The professional work has much stronger foundations when we've got that foundation in place. So what I just want to highlight, because some of you are coming into this session from slightly different perspectives, you can look at this through a number of different lenses. You can look at this work in relation to your purpose around what led you to the role you're currently in. Or you could look at this in terms of more broadly where you are in your life. And we're not separate from our personal lives, although often we separate out. Like when I've done this work, I've done it not with where I am right now, but where I am in my life. And all my values have to be aligned no matter what job I do. It doesn't make any difference what job I do. If I'm not in alignment with my values, I'm not in the right job, full stop. So you can choose which lens you want to work through. You might want to work through all of them, choose which one feels right for you. I know, Belinda, you're wearing multiple hats. So, you could do this each hat that you wear, although I think probably it would be good to have that more broad perspective. And I know, Mel, for you, just from the little bit that we talked about earlier in our conversation, if I look at this picture here, this could be very much you, the woman, obviously not in the winter in the UK, and I couldn't find an Australian picture when I was doing this, but, it can be a bit of a fork in the road for us around, where are we and where do we want to be? Like, which direction do we want to head in? Because we're not working out which direction, but we definitely need to know the values and is that road going to meet those values and the way that I want to live my life? Because I can pretty much guarantee from bitter experience where I haven't lived my values and my jobs have been intolerable to the point that they've actually made me very unwell. this is in younger parts of my life where I just thought I could do anything and I could jump in any job and it didn't really matter. I could just do whatever. And I very quickly realized that if the culture of my working places weren't in line with my values, I probably wasn't going to stay there for very long. And you're all in a really great position because you create the culture. Um, Hopefully you do. And if you don't, it's a really good conversation for us to have. But you do get to steer the culture of where you work. And I would say one of the reasons why I landed up working in early childhood was not because I come from an early childhood background, was not because I'm a teacher. Um, it was because I really am aligned to the values of the majority of women I work with in the not-for-profit. The values are the same. I do a different job to you, but my values are the same, which is why I like working with you, and why we do good work together. But if you put me into other, maybe a corporate work environment where the values are very different, one, I don't think any of my work would necessarily land very well, but I wouldn't be able to be the best version of who I am because I couldn't express the things that are really important to me because I wouldn't have a sense of belonging. And that sense of belonging is a really important part of this conversation. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and just ask, has anyone got any questions with things popping up for you with what I've shared so far? Just jump off mute if you want to. Actually, I'm going to stop pause the recording. Um, so we're just talking about stress. So a sense of purpose, that feeling of meaning and direction is associated with lower subjective stress, and it can act like a psychological resource that steadies us. So when leaders reconnect to their why, it's not just a nice idea. And again, this isn't just for you as leaders, but we're talking about you as leaders. This is really important for educators too. And there are many teams that I've worked with that have done this work that I'm doing with you now with their whole team. I do it with whole teams too. But today we're just talking about for you as leaders. It can help restore clarity, intention, and create better conditions for calmer conversations, stronger relationships, and more collaboration. So it's not unusual for me to work with clients in a coaching capacity where they come to me because they're feeling burnt out or they're on the verge of resigning. And I see it over and over again. And my first starting place is doing this work. This is where I begin, because to me, that's that's the place where we're either staying in the job or we're leaving, dependent on our purpose at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? And our purpose shifts and changes and it evolves over time. It's not static, it doesn't stay in the same place for our entire lives. Our values do tend to stay the same. How we express them changes though. So one of my values is connection. And how I express connection now at my age now in my stage of life is totally different to the way I did in my 20s. And I'm sure you'd have your own examples of that too. So, so when we're talking about our purpose and values, those values express themselves in different ways. And sometimes we outgrow our jobs. Sometimes we need more challenges. It doesn't necessarily mean the values change. It's just the way we wish to express them becomes different. So when we talk about leadership, it's helpful to understand a little about how the brain works. And this is a very simple diagram because we have 6 brain systems in our bodies. I'm just labeling 2, but I'm labeling 2 the most important, but I really want to stress that they're all connected. And this is a very simplistic picture. But the one part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which sits behind the forehead, this is the part of the brain that supports language, planning, decision making, problem solving. It's what helps you be the best director you can be, really, in its basic form. And then the other set, which is equally as important, although does get a little bit carried away at times, is what we call the limbic system. And this system's closely involved in in the creation of emotions, connection, trust, and our sense of safety in relationships. So it strongly influences how we respond under pressure and how we relate to others. And when leadership becomes highly task orientated, compliance driven, or stressful, especially over time, the brain can shift from a prefrontal cortex into a more protective state driven by the limbic system. And in this state, our thinking tends to become more reactive, less flexible, and more focused on our immediate demands. Purpose plays an important role here. It reduces the intensity of stress response, supports the engagement of the prefrontal cortex, and allows us to think more clearly, regulate emotions more effectively, and lead with greater intention. And when people experience greater relational safety, when trust is present, the brain is more open to collaboration, creativity, and learning, which is obviously what we want for our teams. So this is why trust isn't a nice to have in early childhood. It's why I do all the work that I do around conversation intelligence, because conversation intelligence helps us to re-establish trust, to build trust, and to sustain it. So if you hang out with me for any length of time, you'll very quickly know the language that I speak is all about trust. So the impact of connection. So when leaders reconnect with their purpose, it's not that the work disappears, unfortunately. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just do a webinar and we just got you some balanced jobs? That's not going to happen. But how you meet the workloads do change. You feel more grounded, you make more decisions from clarity, from a position of clarity, and you communicate with more intention. And because leadership is relational, teams feel that shift for the care you bring to this work and for you showing up today. And I just really want to quickly say, Belinda, there's a few things that you've said that just sort of cross over on what I'm saying here as well, is that, you know, your gut's probably saying, I'm not happy with some of these changes that we're being forced to push through. Your brain's not either at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Because it's impacting that sense of the way you want to work from a values-led perspective. So it's important we think about ourselves as leaders as holistic as well. Like we're not just a brain and we're not just a gut or a heart. They're all interconnected. And what we want from a brain perspective is we want to come from that self-regulated perspective, which is what our focus is on the Conscious Leaders Mastermind program this year, because for good reason, we know more and more people are more and more excessively stressed. And now, you know, all the reasons I'm saying is it really directly impacts on the way that you lead. So I'm going to keep moving forward. So a process to rediscover your purpose. I have to be totally transparent here. This isn't rocket science. And if I gave you a day, you'd work all this out. It's just giving you a different lens to look through this. Do you know what I mean? These questions are not magic questions. They're questions that have been tried and tested with a lot of people in the early childhood sector, but they're questions that really, they're non-work questions, really. And I did that deliberately. They're not you. I don't use early childhood language in them predominantly. They're questions that I invite people to approach with fun and curiosity and self-discovery. And please feel free to take a screenshot of them. And I would encourage you to do so because our brains take everything so seriously. And when we're in that, really, we've got to get this right, we've got to get that wrong. Isn't that funny? We all work in early childhood and we know that right and wrong isn't the way we teach children. But as adults, we're still walking around with that backpack on us that we're all taught at school, which is there's a right and a wrong way of doing things. There's a right and a wrong way of answering questions. And this process is not that. This process is grab a big piece of paper, grab some colouring pens, play, sit down. And when I did this work with some early childhood educators on Monday, the same thing came up that always comes up is I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but I'm not going to go there because we haven't got time. Women, particularly in early childhood, have a real problem talking about what they're naturally good at. Like, we've really got to get better at this. We really need to start celebrating our strengths. I'm sure if it was a group full of men, we wouldn't have that problem. I would probably have to shut them down. Not all men, but a vast majority of them. So the questions that I ask are, what gives you a sense of purpose? What lights you up and makes you feel genuinely happy and fulfilled? When you answer that question, all those questions, the more broad you are in that, it could be, I love cooking. It could be, I love going out into the bush. It doesn't have to be work related. This is like dropping breadcrumbs and then watching where they all come together. And believe you me, they do. And one of the things that it's important for you to remind yourself, which you already all know, is there is no other one of you on this planet. This is just, you get one shot at this and it's your fingerprint, it's your life. You get to create it. And how amazing is it when you think what gives you a sense of purpose? What gives you a sense of purpose is totally different from me or Belinda or Tracy or Mel. Do you know what I mean? We're all so unique. We wouldn't want to be all the same, would we? Like at the end of the day. So this is about celebrating who we are as well. What are you naturally good at, and what do you do with ease and find yourself fully immersed in? What do people count on you for? What strengths or qualities do you often acknowledge, do others often acknowledge in you? So if you get really stuck on celebrating you and all your amazing strengths, go and ask your loved ones, go and ask your team, go and ask your committees, because I'm pretty sure they would be more than happy to share all your strengths and the things they think that you're good at. And where do you need the most significant value, impact, or difference? Where do you add the most? Because that's your signature tune. There's going to be things you're not good at. That's okay. We can't be perfect, and as directors, you can't be perfect. That's what you have committees for. That's why you bring consultants in. That's why you ask people for support. If we were brilliant at everything, then we wouldn't let everybody else have an opportunity at trying to be brilliant at things too. So when you look at those questions, what does that bring up for you? What does that feel like? Not what does that think? What's going on in your thinking? What does that feel like? Does it feel a bit stressful? Does it feel exciting? What does it feel?
I guess for me, it's a bit of excitement, but also a bit of um,
So I invite you to find some time, preferably not at work, in a place that lights you up, whatever that looks like for you. It could be watching sunrise, Tracy, or it could be sitting on the beach, or whatever feeds your soul. And I love writing and drawing, so I would always choose a big piece of paper, but do whatever lights you up and just play with this, have a go at this. Yeah. And see what comes up. And you're all going to come up with different responses in different ways, dependent on where you are on your journey. But as I keep saying, the most important part of this is that you play with it, okay? And there is a resource that's coming out, or there's a blog post that's just about to come out called the Clarity Compass, which takes this on to a next level. This starts to take it back into work, into thinking about your purpose and your service philosophy. And it's not within this, this resource is very much linked to your service and working in your job. But I wanted to start today off with you, and putting it, I mean, it is all you, work context or not. It's just not put in the professional language. That's all. That's all the difference with this is. It's all professional. And it starts to nudge you towards thinking about how, when you create a clarity statement, which basically a clarity statement is where you've done all the exploration around your purpose, and the clarity statements helps you to start formally languaging it into a statement that you can have a bit like a signature tune that you're happy to share with your committee, you're happy to share it with your team. And it's what, if people were to read your clarity statement, they would know it's about you, not anyone else. It's actually your identifier, because it helps you start to really concisely articulate your purpose in terms of what you believe is important and how you work, and you put it in a beautiful few sentences. But that's like a day's worth of training, which we don't have time to do in an hour. So I've started you off with the process. To me, this is the funnest part of the process, because it's where you start to do some of that heart-led leadership, where you really connect in with what is important to you personally. And that's all that matters. What's personally important to you is what will be your things that people will know about you as a leader, without a doubt. Do you believe me? Yeah. It's like, I don't want to liken you to a cake, but just think about amazing cake that you absolutely love. What makes that cake different to everybody else is the magic ingredients. And that's what we're talking about. You are identifying what it is. It's the magic ingredients of yourself, that, you can articulate in different ways. I'm not going to talk to this slide, by the way, because I don't need to with the current group. But in relation to anyone watching this webinar, and I'm going to press pause on the recording in a minute, the work that we do in the Conscious Leaders Mastermind program is of this flavour, is the best way of describing it. It's all about you in your leadership. And as Tracy started off right at the beginning, beautiful segue, which I didn't ask for her to provide, is that this work is continuous. As leaders, we need to continue to work on ourselves. And what the CLM does is it provides an opportunity for you to do that within a community of like-minded leaders, with like-minded leaders who know the work starts with you first, who know that it's continuously coming back. People say to me, we work on self-regulation. They say, I've been doing this work for years, but I still forget. And I say, so do I. That's the work. That's the work. It's continuous work. It's not an arrival point, which the brain doesn't particularly like, because it wants everything packaged up and then moved on to the next thing. But when we see this as a journey of improvement and increased awareness, it takes the pressure off getting somewhere, and it enables us to be self-compassionate to ourselves as leaders. And in order for you to continue to do the enormous jobs you do, you have to have self-compassion, and you have to be, in my opinion, held in a place where you feel supported. And my hope is that the CLM does that for people in the right place at the right time for them as they go along. So I'm going to just wrap up on the recording, and then I'm going to open it up before we jump off. But I just want to thank everybody for their time. And if you've watched the recording, I hope you've taken lots of value from today's session. There'll be lots of resources coming out and blog posts and things linked to this particular topic, because it's an important time of year. But if you've got any questions about the CLM, please feel free to reach out. The details are on the slide, and I will say farewell for now. Trying to stop pause.